breaking news story tonight. Charges now filed in connection after police say a tourist was held captive and tortured for weeks in Soho.
John Waltz, the crypto king of Kentucky, and another crypto millionaire are currently accused of a kidnapping plot of an Italian crypto millionaire in the city of New York, where allegedly for weeks they tortured this Italian crypto millionaire in order to try to get all of his crypto fortune. Now, we are going to get into this. We are going to break this down. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Mike, police say that victim, a 28-year-old man from Italy, had a falling out with his former business partners, who in turn made false promises to get him back here so they could access his crypto account. Well, he ended up part of a sick, twisted extortion plot, held for more than 2 weeks, bound to a chair with a gun to his head. You have an explanation for this? From a Soho brownstone to the big house, John Waltz had nothing to say about what happened behind these walls, fit for a Hollywood thriller. But no, this was a real-life torture chamber.
So look, obviously the facts of this particular case are unusual for what we typically cover on this channel. This involves multi-millionaires, all of the people, the victim and the suspect. It involves a crazy torture scheme, and this actually takes place in a Soho apartment, again, allegedly, that happens to rent for $75,000 per month.
The house, all 8 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms, sits set back from the sidewalk on this busy block in Soho. It was rented just a couple of months ago. Its most recent listing price, $75,000 per month.
That is more than double what I pay for rent for the current apartment that I'm in with my wife, which comparatively to other New York City apartments is actually a decent sized place to live. Again, we're talking mega millionaires right here. We're talking big money, and for them to go with this thuggish, brutish tactic of luring their former business associate in order to torture him, in order to extort money out of him, to me is craziness from top to bottom. But I also want to point out that there is a second suspect that has been arrested in connection with this particular crime. He is another crypto millionaire. He is located out of Florida. However, he was able to turn himself in to the 13th precinct at about 7:45 in the morning, according to the New York Post, after having a wonderful holiday weekend in the Hamptons, which, by the way, seems rather weird and unusual compared to what we would normally see police do when you have a serious violent crime like this, which is hunt the person down and arrest them on the police's terms rather than have him turn himself in on his own terms. And remember, the victim in this particular case could easily identify both of the perpetrators because these were his former business associates, according to police. Now, that other individual is named William Duplessis, who, again, like I said before, is a Miami-based crypto millionaire. However, I also want to highlight that this very local news affiliate, ABC7, also has been giving special treatment to the particular suspects in this case, because their earlier segment that they shot in the morning, one of the things that you'll notice is that they blurred out the face of the suspect because they wanted to protect him because, he hadn't been really charged or anything like that.
We are blurring the suspect's picture in that video because police have not formally charged him or named him publicly, but he's being questioned right now at the NYPD's 5th precinct. They're also seeking at least one other person they say was involved.
And they pretended like this was a normal standard policy for ABC7, but they're my local affiliate, so I know nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I've called them out for sometimes blurring minority suspects when they don't blur white suspects, which is something that they do along with the CBS affiliate over here, but it appears that also extends to rich people, at least until all the different other various local news agencies end up deciding to identify said rich person. Then all of a sudden ABC7's principles are completely out the window. So yeah, ABC7 absolutely embarrassing for taking a moral stance that they do not have as a policy at their local news station, and then reversing that when other agencies decided that they were going to just identify this person.
Guy comes out in a white bathrobe, barefoot, hands cuffed behind his back, got into a police car. He didn't look concerned, He didn't look worried or anything like that.
Now, I also want to point out that this neighborhood has a lot of characters within it. Now, of course, this is something that is unusual. It's atypical for a Soho community such as this, but I do find it funny that the local vendor from across the street, and you might not have heard it all that well right there, speaks with a very thick, heavy Irish accent. And in fact, I first discovered that he had this very thick Irish accent when I watched the NBC segment where the presenter had a thick accent.
Kilma, and the crime scene investigation is ongoing. Behind me, officers say, as you mentioned, a man ran away from this home here on Prince Street around 10 this morning, went to a traffic agent who then called officers from a nearby precinct. The man in distress, telling police he had been kidnapped and tortured. Street vendors in Nolita shocked after a man was taken into custody at this townhouse on Prince Street this morning.
This Asian lady that you see right here had a bit of an accent.
Kidnapper is supposed to be wealthy, and he captured a tourist. For whatever reason, I think it has to do with business dealing.
But honestly was the best English speaker among the people that they interviewed.
I thought it was a big celebrity or making a movie or something. Actually, it was about kidnapping.
And I don't know what's going on, because even though this seems like a very serious case, the allegations are absolutely crazy. For whatever reason, all these local news segments have just an element of goofiness in them that doesn't really rise to the level of the subject matter. So let me give you a breakdown of what's actually being accused right here, and then maybe you could understand why I'm so weirded out by the local news coverage in this particular case.
One of the charges a dejected-looking Waltz now faces. They may fit the bill for white-collar criminals, but this was no white-collar crime. Police sources say the cryptocurrency entrepreneurs kidnapped and tortured a former business partner in this Prince Street house, looking to extort him for millions in crypto after luring him back from Italy. Investigators say they tied him up, electrocuted him, tased him with his feet in water, and threatened to cut off his limbs with an electric chainsaw.
So of course you have two crypto millionaires, and their former business associate is an Italian citizen. He actually went back to Italy after having a falling out with these particular individuals. He is lured back to the city of New York on May 6th of this year. And for 3 weeks, as soon as he entered this Soho brownstone, he was kidnapped. His passport was removed from him, and he was beaten, thrown through furniture, and tortured with electricity. Now, there's multiple different accounts of the electric-related torture that this guy ended up enduring. The first is a regular, ordinary tasing, but apparently they also hooked up electrical devices to him while they dipped his feet in water, which, according to Pokemon rules, the water enhances electricity, making it all the more dangerous. And again, this was so that these multimillionaires could extract his fortune from him. And obviously, whether you think that it amplifies to the level of Pokemon or not, when your feet are dipped in water and people are holding up electrical things in order to shock you, you're going to be terrified. You're also going to be even more terrified because you have to know at some point in time in the back of your head that once this torture is done, once you turn over the goods to these individuals, you are likely facing the end of your life. And at some point in time, this guy was actually threatened with an electric chainsaw, where these two crypto millionaires were saying that they were going to cut off his limbs if he didn't give up the passwords or give up the access to his accounts in order to transfer his crypto fortune into their accounts. And yeah, that's absolutely crazy for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, they're cutting off your limbs in order to steal your money. You're definitely going to die, very likely. They took you at gunpoint within this home. They've tied you up. They've taken a bunch of Polaroids of you. You're likely not going to see your way out of this. And two, they chose an electric chainsaw, which is just not as effective as a gas-powered one, so you know it's going to be incredibly painful as well. This is what this guy endured, but he managed to actually break out of this confinement. He found a New York City traffic cop, was able to get this person's attention, got them to call 911, and then of course they raided this Soho place. Now, if you guys live in New York City, if you guys have encountered New York City traffic cops, the fact that this Italian immigrant was able to get assistance from this person is a miracle in and of itself, because these are the kind of people, and if you know, that pretend to be police officers when they're getting on your case, but as soon as you ask them for something, even if it's directions, they pretend like they have nothing to do with you. They don't want to talk to you. And they just tell you in a not so polite way to move along. At least that's been my experience with the traffic cops. So I'm very surprised that this guy was actually able to get help from one. But yeah, this is what is being alleged in this particular case. So I find it disgusting that the local news affiliate will run defense for the alleged suspects, because even though we all understand innocent until proven guilty, this is not something they would do for a regular, ordinary white suspect that was accused of a violent crime. They might do it for a minority depending on the circumstances, but a white person, no. Obviously, it feels like they gave him an advantage in terms of coverage because he's wealthy, and they didn't even have the fortitude to stick by those principles a full 24 hours because the 6 o'clock local news segment ended up changing their coverage completely.
Electrocuted him, tased him with his feet in water, and threatened to cut off his limbs with an electric chainsaw.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
Now, like I said, for whatever reason, throughout the course of these local news segments, we're just not getting the seriousness the story demands. They end up cutting to this woman right here. And by the way, all these different other people have been interviewed throughout the course of multiple local news segments, and they've given lengthier statements that sometimes they cut down. But this girl quite literally is there to say, oh my gosh, and then pause dramatically. That's insane, which, by the way, is probably going to be a clip that I will keep forever throughout the course of this channel.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
No, it's not insane. When you end up presenting yourself in that way, I find it to be amusing. So thank you to this girl and this local ABC7 affiliate for deciding to, just interview her for one sentence and making it that goofy.
The depravity in this 8-bedroom, 10-bathroom house listed to rent for $75,000 a month, stopping fashionable Soho crowds in their tracks.
So again, they touch on the fact that this house rents for $75,000 a month. That is more than double what I pay for rent in a year in New York City. And I don't exactly have the smallest New York City apartment, but this is the difference between living in Soho and living in an outer borough in a neighborhood that is not exactly the most trending with the youth, like I happen to be. But yeah, this is really ridiculous and absurd. And like I told you before, even though the allegations in this particular case sound quite serious, even though obviously this, if this were to have occurred, would be quite troublesome, we start to get regular, ordinary New Yorker reactions, and a perfect example of this is this woman right here. And by the way, yes, the local news media is trying to make me laugh, even though this case is serious.
I heard someone yelling in the house or something, and this one girl walked by and she was like, if I were you, I would close the door, the police are out with their guns like this.
If I were to distill a New York City mindset into a couple of sentences, that would be a perfect example right there. Here you have a police raid in this very wealthy, very nice neighborhood, and this girl says her neighbor told her, you probably want to close your doors because the police are busting down that place, and the noise might be a little bit annoying to you. You don't want to hear this nonsense going on. Just move along with your life, which honestly is something that New Yorkers often do in a bunch of other crazy scenarios. But again, this is not a very typical torture and robbery scheme because it involves wealthy individuals, this whole elaborate plot. And again, the way that these people are being treated by the news media and the police seems rather different from what you would expect and what you would get treated as if you were arrested for a similar crime.
Police stormed the house after the victim made an escape this morning on what the crypto bros allegedly said would be his death day. Held captive since May 6th. Drugged, tortured, and cut, he's now free, while Waltz is on his way to jail.
It's one of those unusual situations, to say the least.
So first of all, I gotta give a lot of credit to the victim in this particular case because he was able to escape on the day that he was told he was going to die. And obviously it takes some fortitude, some courage and whatnot in order to get yourself out of that particular situation. But I also want to give discredit to these rich crypto bros because they want to play like they're mobsters. They want to play like they're knowing what they're doing. But in reality, you saying, hey, we are going to kill you tomorrow, sir. You will die this day. And then leaving him unguarded is just bad criminaling, bad criming. And I just want to say it's embarrassing, in my opinion, that these guys put on this piss poor of a performance. But of course, I want to know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below.
Police described the victim as having been tied up with electrical cords, given shock treatments. He was allegedly pistol whipped, threatened with a chainsaw, and dangled from the roof. And they even took Polaroids of the victim with the hopes of extorting his family.
Do you believe, as I do, that the local news affiliates missed a golden opportunity to make more crypto-related puns, like, saying that this digital currency just got all too real, or something of the sort? Or do you think they could have referenced that Law & Order Gamer episode by saying that these crypto bros leveled up?
What'd they do to you? They leveled up.
Again, I think all of these weird, goofy, kind of takes should have been included in this local news segment, but unfortunately, they are sadly missing. I mean, you could have said digital currency, but real world pain. Something like that would have really, punched up this story, but apparently the local news affiliate was too busy covering for this guy at first, and not thinking of puns like they normally do in these kind of stories. As per usual, guys, if you like this video, show me by leaving a like. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. You can subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a crazy story out of Manhattan, New York. Till next time.